we please be upstanding for the prayer? Almighty God, we who are gathered together in council pledge ourselves to work in harmony for the welfare and development of our rural city. Guide us, we pray, in our deliberations. Help us to be fair in our judgment and wise in our actions, so that prosperity and happiness shall be the lot of our people. Amen. Mildura Rural City Council acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of land which now comprise the Mildura Rural City Municipality. We pay our respects to elders past and present and celebrate and respect their continuing cultures and acknowledge the memories of their ancestors. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the August Ordinary Meeting of Council this Thursday, 22nd of August 2024. I welcome councillors, management staff and members of the public that join us here tonight. I also welcome those members of the public viewing the live stream online or watching this recording at a later time. This meeting is being live streamed on Council's website. The meeting recording will be published on the same site within 48 hours of this meeting concluding. Tonight at item 18, we'll be considering 5 confidential reports. The live stream will conclude on once Council resolves to move into confidential business. This aspect of the recording will not be made available on our website. Thank you. So before we get into the formalities of this meeting, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on these past 4 years as we've spent as councillors together, as this will be our last official meeting of this term. In November of 2020, the new council was elected and sworn in among rolling COVID lockdowns. Masks and social distancing became the norm in the council chambers. Community feedback continues to shape plans for what we know as Powerhouse Place. More than 1,000 residents and businesses provided feedback. We rolled out a broad range of supports for businesses, particularly hospitality operators impacted by COVID, including installing temporary space, queue parklets in Fee Street and quick turnaround funding for businesses. We kicked off a massive 6 months community engagement process to help inform our first 20-year community vision, Imagine 2040, which has guided our strategic direction over this council term. We announced a 2-year partnership with WNBL Team Bendigo Spirit and Mildura Sporting Precinct. This was locked in despite Stage 1 still being in final stages of construction. Officially opened Stage 1 of the Mildura Sporting Precinct. Somersault Music Festival held in our region. Started work on Powerhouse Place, which was completed and opened in September 2023. We realised Mildura Sporting Precinct's potential with AFLW, Kings of Leon, WNBL, just to name a few in its first year. Turned first sight on a $2.6 million suite of 5 projects along the Mallee Track to help smaller communities recover from impacts of COVID. Called Mallee Back on Track, Murrayville Recreation Reserve Community Complex and Change Rooms, Murrayville Wetlands and Walking Trails, Stage 2 of Owen Fitness, Health and Wellbeing Centre, Underbull Bowls of Artificial Turf Project, Walpiup Hall Restoration Final Stage. Announced the first of 3 Red Hot Summer Tours in our region. Toward the end of 2022, we dealt with one of the biggest challenges our region has faced with the Murray River flood event. Massive amount of work to prepare and inform our community. Massive amount of work to protect our community, including rapid establishment of 3 kilometres of levee by our teams, moving 50,000 cubic metres of dirt in 12 days to build the levee. Held community meetings across our region to keep community informed, then understood the huge recovery effort to reinstate our public areas. 2023 bestowed our key to the city on our international opera star Siobhan Stagg, launched our region's affordable housing task force, welcomed our first ever youth council and welcomed Doc from Youth Council here today, completed and officially opened Powerhouse Place September. 2024 launched our region's first ever regional motorsport strategy, started work on the Redcliffe's Early Learning Years Centre, continued to ongoing development and beautification of Deakin Avenue Centre median, completed the planting of 500 trees in our CBD as part of the Urban Regenerate program, launched the Tropical North Victoria Tourism Campaign, and over the course of the 4-year terms, Council has held more than 12 community conversations across our municipality, visiting pretty much all of our region's smaller towns. Announced more than $1.8 million in council grants to 217 groups, welcomed more than 360 new Australian citizens to our community and more than a dozen citizenship ceremonies, issued more than 4,200 building permits for development valued at more than $950 million. There has been an increase in overnight visitors numbers to the Wentworth-Mildura region following COVID restrictions, increasing on an average by an estimated 30% between December 2021 and March this year. So I'd like to thank all the councillors and all the staff for a fantastic 4 years. Thanks very much. Item 3, those who are present: Deputy Mayor Mark Eckel, Councillor Helen Healy, Councillor Ian Arney, Councillor Troy Bailey, Councillor Stefano Di Pieri, Councillor Glenn Milne, Councillor Jason Modica, Councillor Jodie Reynolds, CEO Martin Hawson, General Manager Strategy and Growth Peter Alexander, General Manager Healthy Communities Mark Jenkins, General Manager Infrastructure and Assets Darryl Morgan, General Manager of Corporate Performance Kate Henschke, and Manager of Governance Alani Baird. Item 4, apologies and absences, and there are none. Item 5, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Are there any councillors who would like to disclose conflicts of interest?
Mr Mayor, I'll be going out at 1510, the Mildura East growth area. I have a brother-in-law that lives and owns land in that area.
Sure.
And the heritage study, Mr Mayor.
Sure.
And I have a conflict in a confidential item when that comes up, Councillor Wood.
Thank you. Item 6, confirmation of minutes. We have the following minutes that can be confirmed tonight. Ordinary meeting of council minutes for the meeting held on the 25th of July 2024. Confidential meeting of council minutes for the meeting held on 25th of July 2024. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
A seconder? Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Motion is passed. Item 7, confirmation of council auspice meetings. We have the records for 3 council auspice meetings to note tonight. They are from the following meetings: Planning Forum 9th of July 2024, Council Forum 8th of August 2024, and Special Councillor Briefing 13th of August 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Milne. Seconder, Councillor Healy. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Item 8, notification of absences, and I believe we're finishing up, so there's no need for that one.
We're all absent.
Item 9, Mayoral Report, 9.1 Mayoral Report, July 2024. The council note the contents of this report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Modica. Seconder, Councillor Di Pieri. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. Item 10, councillor reports. 10.1, councillor reports, July 2024. I invite any councillors who would like to speak. We might just go around the room. And do you have anything? Councillor Healy? Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. A couple of things. One is today, Mildura, or Regional Victoria was part of a full-page story in the Sun Herald on shoplifting, and I just want to report in being part of the City Heart Board, a senior police made a report during the week that yes, it's a global phenomenon and we're not escaping that, and he mentioned even in New York they don't even investigate shoplifting anymore. But he did mention that Mildura is really well placed because of our CCTV and how that assists in identification of shoplifters. And he saw that as a real positive for us in the City Heart and that area around the CBD. And additionally, due to partnerships with Vic Pole, Hands Up Mallee, the City Heart is currently a much safer and friendlier place than it was in previous times. And on that note, being a part of those committees, really pleased to report that the vacancy rate in the City Heart, or the occupancy rate, is currently 92%, and that's up from 45% during COVID. As chair of the CBD Steering Committee and a council observer on the City Heart Board, it's been a pleasure to be part of these groups and watch these projects, the revitalisation projects, including the tree planting as part of the Regenerate program, the toilet and bin upgrades, the roundabout improvement work, the Deakin Avenue median strip upgrades, and now as an outcome of Trader Business Breakfast and community consultation in October 2022, there is a lot more planned. So maybe we're well on our way to having the most beautiful main street in the world, which is a very exciting part of the city right now. I'd also like to report that a couple of weeks ago I went to Melbourne with council staff to receive an award for place naming. But that's not the point of what I want to say, even though it was naming a long overdue project of naming women. But when I got up to accept the award, there's a couple of hundred people in the room, and I gave greetings from tropical North Victoria. And the response in the room was overwhelming. I even had to turn to the two staff members and say, "Did you see what I saw?" The whole room got it, and they got the cheekiness of it. And in fact, someone from another council that has a lot of winter tourism came up and used a few expletives, but just really congratulated us on the innovation of that project. So congratulations to the strategy and growth team on the external support and attention that that's getting. And lastly, on the weekend, I had two really lovely encounters with our Indian community through the Sunraysia India Association and the Punjabi Association. The Independence Day event at the Ovals was just really, really joyful. I was there with Councillor Milne was there for a little while too and made a speech, and the Mayor of Wentworth as well, and it was just a really lovely day helping celebrate 78 years since independence. And then the next day I went to the Punjabi Association's Tiyan Women and Family event, and got all dressed up in the sari provided by some of the women, and it was a really, really lovely, lovely day. And on that note, because we're just talking about gift policy later on, I've just been told this is an official gift, so this is a little plaque they gave me for being a guest of honour, and I'll pass that over to the gift register. Thank you very much.
Steph?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I had to kind of pinch myself as you were talking about the achievement of the last 4 years, because I've turned up tonight just thinking business as usual, but it isn't. And the notable achievements you have mentioned didn't raise one thing that was very dear to my heart, and it is the the process of establishing a cultural policy. I'm a bit sad that it didn't make it to the last final meeting of council, and even more, kind of little disappointed that we haven't been able to get out to the public and to all the contributors to this fantastic piece of work, which will really complement another item on this agenda, which is the heritage report, as well as, of course, the lights project, which will happen hopefully next year. So really, in essence, I hope that such policies will continue in the future, regardless whoever is sitting on these chairs, because they're very valuable parts of our community development.
Thanks, Steph. And I'm sure I missed out on thousands of other things that we did, but it's good to note them.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The same. I think Councillor DiPieri said it eloquently, and I was so pleased that he was part because of that process, particularly the cultural and the history and cultural project, because I know it was close to his heart. I know that when he first stood, that he told me that he was going to put all his energies into that project, and he definitely has. It's come along it's such a wonderful project, and the incoming council is going to have great kudos in releasing that. Also, talking about the incoming council, I've got to pass comment on the Tropical North, Mildura's Tropical North promotion the other night at the Arts Centre. You know, I've been around council for quite a while, and I love a topic that polarises the community. Really, I do, because what happens is that it stimulates discussion, and it has throughout Australia. And I'm going to tell you something in a moment that you'll be amazed with. But the job that the staff has done with that, and particularly to get Shane Jacobson on board as the ambassador, is just pure genius. But and well done to the staff, and we really look forward to what that's going to do for Mildura into the future. So, talking about things close to my heart, what about the 707 slow train? Absolutely fantastic. The other night, Friday night, we had 172 of them in the grand ballroom having dinner, silver service, by the way, and the Chaffey Trail were happy to present a video of the history of Mildura that we spent $5,000 on, and they were absolutely delighted with that, and so much so that I think it might become an item that the Chaffey Trail might be able to make some money out of to invest into Mildura's history. But that said, I travelled down to Murrayville with 120 went to Murrayville and 50 went out to Lake Mungo. And I've got to say, it was the moment of my council career. Going along in the train, the passenger train, along the Marley track, and to see, look, it's like you're going out and you've seen a dinosaur crawl through the, honest to God, the cars were lined up at the crossroads, the cameras were on tripods, there were train chasers. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then you get to Murrayville and all the community in Murrayville come out. Three coaches went back to Pink Lakes and went out to that excursion. Absolutely fantastic. Got back on the train. Actually, the train stopped in a particular area because none of the platforms obviously could be used because they were all, you know, if they didn't have one, they were pretty dilapidated. But what we did was pull on to a road, a crossroad. The train had to stop, and stairs were put up for all the people to get back into the train. So it was fantastic. So interesting enough, Julie Jewell and her husband Dennis met the people with me on the riverfront on Sunday and gave them a river ramble tour, a historical tour of the riverfront. They went on the paddle boat in the afternoon, and it was just fantastic. But I think one of the biggest things, and this is what I'm saying about Mildura's tropical North Victoria, Matt Lucas, the leader of that group, got up on the intercom on the train as we were going down, and he said briefly about this particular promotion, but what he did say that startled me was during the course of that promotion, in that week, they received 100 phone calls for bookings for the next train that's coming up. So absolutely fantastic. So congratulations to all involved, and it was certainly a highlight of my council career. Have I said enough?
Yeah, I was just saying at least you're consistent over the 4 years, Mark, that you've gone over every time, so that's good.
Councillor De Pieri is added to it. He said, when's the next one? And I can tell him it's Melbourne Cup weekend, and they've already booked out.
Thank you. Troy.
Yes, a good time for reflection. I think, and I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I just wanted to say, from my perspective, how honoured I am to have served here, and particularly two groups that I wanted to thank for their time. Working with the Disability Inclusion Advisory Committee and seeing those people with disabilities with such passion for this community and wanting to help others with disability to have the best possible life in Mildura. I think, you know, that committee is doing an amazing job, and I was just glad to be a part of it, and particularly Jenny Snaden and the work that she does there tirelessly. And I'll always remember the time she spends setting up the room where the technology never works. So it's always a bit of an ongoing joke.
Sounds familiar.
It's, you know, I'm in the right career, I think. So, but, and the other particular one, there were so many, but also the Youth Council, for me, yeah, another incredible journey, and so grateful we've got some of them here tonight. You know, recently we got to vote on the Youth Awards. So yeah, just seeing that journey, seeing them grow, and what they've achieved, you know, we'll be discussing some later on. And, you know, a reminder that they've got the Youth Showcase next Friday coming up. We will be announcing those awards, and they've put that together. That's their idea, it's their event, and it's for the youth. So, you know, to have such leadership of youth in Mildura is fantastic, and to have watched them grow. And yeah, I just can't wait to see what the future holds for them. So, yeah, just great to have been a part of it. So thank you.
Hopefully they're sitting in our seats in the future. Jodie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just also like to reflect on, you know, the 4 years that we've had here, all the achievements that you spoke about, Mayor Wood. I think that part of the reason that we're able to achieve so much is because the councillors in this room work together with the council staff. It was a job that we saw that we were doing together rather than a them and us situation. We worked together as councillors and we respected each other as councillors. We had healthy debates, and through those debates we came up with really good answers and ways to go forward. So it was something that we all did together, and I think we can be proud of that as a group. Personally, I'm really pleased that I was able to be involved with the Australian Inland Botanic Gardens as part of the committee that I was associated with. You always learn so much when you're doing this role and about your community and what your community does, and the people that are involved in the community, and meeting those people has been one of the pleasures of my time at council. And finally, just want to say, bring back a passenger train. If we can do the 707 and we can get those people here as tourists, we can have a passenger train too. Thank you.
Jake?
Yeah, just supporting what everybody said. It's a very unique position to find yourself in if you put the money on the table and get the required amount of votes. So I encourage everybody who is interested to do it. But then we begin to reflect on the actual hard work of a council. A lot of the things that we finished off in the last 4 years were actually projected out of the 12-16 council and the 16-20 council. My biggest commitment is to the unheralded staff that do all the work on the top of our strategy. And yes, we do get to sit in this room and we do get to talk and have a laugh, but also, you know, there's been some times when we've had a go at each other, but that's part of the game as well. But in the end, if we have a great strategy and good projects get up, and then we have our staff, our wonderful staff, present great outcomes, that makes it better for our community. So we're very lucky to have been able to have served, and we're very lucky to have had a great group of people that deliver that strategy. So it's been an honour.
Glenn?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to note a couple of things that are missing out of my report, and that is that I attended the Merbein Lions changeover dinner, had a desert race Saturday and Sunday, the local government working group on gambling, the Fire Brigade annual dinner, Mildura, but I'll also be going to the Redcliffs one that will be their 100th in October, which is fantastic. And local fire brigade, I mean, they're out there last night fighting a fire. They're up in the middle of the night. They look after us. You know, they're just fantastic people. So all the best to them. I also nearly made myself sick on vanilla slices. I finished the last one last night and attended the Indian Independence Day celebration, and also did the flag raising. I'd like to mention that I also was on the last train to Moringa, and that was a long time ago, last passenger train, and there'll never be another one because the railway line's gone. Dinosaurs were mentioned before, and I thought I'd make mention of one, and that's my old mate sitting over here at the end of the table. This is Mark's last meeting, so we've been through a lot, and you know, we fight a lot, we argue a lot, yell at each other, but what people don't know is it's usually followed by a phone call on the way home going, geez, you were grumpy. And we've also done a lot together. alike a lot, even though it might not seem like that to people. But we've had a long history and it's been a fun ride, Mark. So I wish you all the best on behalf of the council. You know, we've worked together, community radio, we've got an interest in history, Chafee Trail. We've worked closely with, you know, they're all our friends and they've done a great job. You've done a great job, dressed up. Your hair's gone from black to grey and sometimes back to black, but he'll take it, it's all right, he'll just ring me up and give me a hard time later. We've been on trips together, sister cities. You're passionate about that. Our relationship with Japan was a bit shaky there at one stage. And we went over there, had a great time together. We were supposed to go to China, but you went AWOL on that one. But we've worked together, the riverfront, the water park, the sporting precinct, Deakin Avenue. There's been floods, droughts, all sorts of things. And yeah, I just thank you, Mark, for your work. I thank you for your arguments and for your friendship. So I wish you all the best.
Hope I don't get another 4 years.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Monica, a seconder? Councillor Pieri. I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. And thanks for everyone for their input. Responses to councillor questions, and there are none. Item 12, questions from councillors, and there are none. 13, notices of motion. We have one notice of motion for consideration tonight. 13.1, designated area migration agreement. The following motion was moved by Councillor Eckel and seconded by Councillor Pieri. The council requests a report that provides a better understanding of the benefits of establishing a designated area migration agreement and how this could benefit our region. Would anyone like to speak against that motion? I'll now, Councillor Eckel, would you like to speak for it?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor and councillors, this issue arose following a conversation that I had with Jane Zhang, who is the International Relations Manager with TAFE and accompanied council and La Trobe University when I was the Mayor to China on an education trip, and also accompanying us this last couple of weeks was a lovely lady from China in Shandy Ma, who was over here hoping to maybe come across here on a sponsorship. And she had a certificate 3 in aged care and graduated from TAFE 10 years ago. So this was a little bit grey to me, this area, so decided to go around to the different local aged care organisations, and consequently, and also not conversant with this sector, we met with Regis, Bupa and Chafee Aged Care. To cut to the chase, I found out quickly, but really surprised, that our region, in fact, the whole of Northern Victoria, is not a state, federal, Dharma recognised industry region. And tonight, I move this motion with letters of support from those organisations that we met with. Regis Claudios Spitti, he was the Regional General Manager, South Australia, Mildura. Bupa APAC, Head of Strategic and Workforce Team and Head of Strategic Sourcing, Lara Smart, and also Gerard de Jose, of course, who was the CEO here and is the CEO now at Chafee Aged Care, and they are all in support. And the big issue will be that the next council, this gets through tonight, the next council needs to take this on board and go to the other councils within our region, within Northern Victoria, and make sure that we get membership throughout Northern Victoria, so we can add the opportunity of getting skilled labour, whether from within Australia or overseas. So thanks, councillors, and I hope this motion gets through this evening.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? Councillor Arning, yep.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Having quite a number of friends who've been here on visas and trying to stay here as long as possible and being educated, trying to get into a position where they can stay here because they don't want to go back to their country of birth, I think this is really important. I personally find it really difficult that the bar is set incredibly high for some people to stay here. I find it amazing. So as a council, if we can do something to help people, I'd be really appreciative.
Yep, and many industries are screaming out for staff and skilled staff, so I think it's really important too. So anyone else like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thanks for bringing it up, Mark.
Thanks, councillors.
14, petitions, joint letters and deputations. There is one petition for noting tonight. 14.1 petition, Murrayville Water Tank Landscaping. Recommendation that council note the petition and that this matter be considered within the ordinary council meeting. Do I have a mover? Councillor Milne, seconder. Councillor Eckel. There you go, getting along. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Motion is carried. 15, management reports. We will now move on to considering the management reports. 15.1, Councillor Quarterly Expenses Report, 1st of April 2024 to the 30th of June 2024. Recommendation that Council note the contents of this report, which details Council's quarterly expenses for the period of 1st of April 2024 to 30th of June 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Monica, seconder. Councillor Healy. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Motion is carried. 15.2, Audit and Risk Committee meeting 1/2024-2025, minutes summary 8th of July 2024. Recommendation that Council note the confidential minutes of Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 8th of July 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Milne, seconder. Councillor Reynolds. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. 15.3, Election Period Policy CP037. The Council adopt the updated Election Period Policy CP037, reviewed July 2024, as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Reynolds, a seconder. Councillor De Pieri. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Motion is carried. 15.4, Councillor Gift Policy CP095. Helen? The Council adopt the updated Councillor Gift Policy CP095, reviewed July 2024, as presented. A mover? Councillor Healy. A seconder? Councillor Reynolds. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Motion is carried. 15.5, adoption of S6 Instrument of Delegation. Recommendation in the exercise of the powers conferred by the legislation referred to in the attached Instrument of Delegation, Mildura Rural City Council resolves that 1, there be delegated to the members of council staff holding, acting in or performing the duties of the officers or positions referred to in the attached Instrument of Delegation to members of council staff, the powers, duties and functions set out in that instrument, subject to the conditions and limitations specified in that instrument. 2, the instrument comes into force immediately. The common seal of council is affixed to the instrument. 3, on the coming into force of the instrument, all previous delegations to members of council staff, other than Chief Executive Officer, are revoked. And 4, the duties and functions set out in the instrument must be performed, and the powers set out in the instruments must be executed in accordance with any guidelines or policies of council that it may from time to time adopt. Do I have a mover? Councillor Monica. Seconder. Councillor Eckel. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? I now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Motion is carried. 15.6, adoption of Youth Engagement Strategy 2024-2029. Recommendation that Council adopt the Youth Engagement Strategy 2024-2029 as presented. Do I have a mover? Troy. Councillor Hilly, second. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Troy?
Sorry, I was reading my
That's
notes.
okay.
There's too much going on. Yes, it's continuing on from before. Just an incredible achievement. The way the youth here ripped apart the survey and rewrote it that in a way that suited themselves, and it showed through their document. And so you can be certain that this strategy is by youth for youth. And what I'm pleased to see is that now, with any planning or engagement or strategies, that the council will include the youth council in the discussion, in the involvement of parks and recreation, because we see from this document now what's important to them, what they need, what they have, what they don't have. So it's an excellent document, and will serve us in good stead for many, many years. So thank you.
Thanks, Troy. Anyone like to speak for it? Helen?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Wood, and thanks, Troy. Many of us were so supportive of the establishment of the Youth Council, and I especially welcome, as you already have, Doc here. I'm not sure if you're the current chair of the group or you rotate the group, but certainly a leading voice in the group. So welcome, and thanks for the work you and your team have done. I think it's really important that we have all these diverse voices, but particularly important that we have the youth voice creating the youth policy and really paving the way for future people to sit around this table. And I'm really pleased to hear that some of the Youth Council will continue into next year, and I look forward to seeing them work even more closely with Council, attending meetings, having a voice in meetings, even perhaps at meetings like this, having the platform for 5 minutes to present their reports, their strategy to the public. I've spoken to a couple of the Youth Council young people, and the most common word used is how proud they are to have their voice presented to Council in such a genuine and unique way. She said they tore up the old surveys and did it in a completely new way. So congratulations to the team, and look forward to hearing great things from you all.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Eccles?
Yes, I'd like to speak for the motion too. It's really good that this has got through at this particular stage with this council, and well done, Councillor Troy, in the work that you've done with the youth. But I will say one thing, that it's really, really important now that you have this, that the council plan, there's nothing more important than the council plan. And if the young people don't have input into the council plan, well, nothing is done for youth. And with that comes the budget. As I've said over many, many years to councillors that come on board here, if you don't get the two together, you're not going to accomplish anything within this community. So you have the support, and you definitely have the support around the table here, and I'm sure you will next year. And the big thing is that you work towards your plans for the youth, for this community, and I'm talking about the whole community, the municipality, getting people down on the Mallee track involved, and make sure that whatever your strategic approach is for the future, that each of those dot points are covered off on budgetary items. So, and then you go to the council and you do your work. So good on you, and well done. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Helen? The motion is carried. 15.7, dog park funding opportunity, and I'll pass on to General Manager, Healthy Communities, Mark Jenkins.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify one thing. The report outlines a concept plan and specific location for the dog park at Kenny Park. It should be noted that further consultation is required with the Melbourne community to determine the final location of the dog park within Kenny Park itself. Once that has been agreed, the application will be submitted to the state government, and the application closes on the 14th of October. Just want to clarify that issue, because the report says about location is determined, and in fact we need to do more consultation with the community.
Yet to be determined.
Yep.
Thank you. The recommendation that Council 1 endorse an application to the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action's new upgraded dog parks program for the construction of an off-leash dog park at Kenny Park in Merbeen, and 2, allocate $60,000 excluding GST from the 2025-26 Capital Works program to deliver an off-leash dog park at Kenny Park, Merbeen, subject to a successful funding application to the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action's new Upgrade Dog Parks program. Do I have a mover? Councillor Monica, a seconder. Councillor Arnie. Anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? Troy, as a dog owner?
Two. Very excited, and I can't wait to see more and more dog parks. It's a long drive to get to our one and only dog park for some people in Mildura, and yes, I hope that Merbein has a lot of input. I think there's possibly a lot of learnings from the one we have. I was excited to see the suggested location had a lot of trees. I think shade is important. I think in the comments, my technology's letting me down, but it was talking about the social and exercise for dogs, but what we also need to realise is the human element here. It's actually a social and engagement opportunity for people. It's not just about the dogs. And I'd almost say, after the local swimming pool, it's the dog park. And that's where people will go, they socialise. I think we're living in a world now where there's a huge loneliness, the loneliness of people living in their little brick homes, they're struggling along. We've all got our pets now because of COVID, where we need to get out, yet we need more dog parks, and I think huge potential here, and I hope the aesthetics, the fencing looks a little bit more in tune with the environment and not a prison yard. There's a lot of things we can do to make dog parks better, but this is fantastic, and I can't wait to see our Imple and Redcliffs with one, and where the community wants, with plenty of shade and lighting, and again, because people are going there to socialise and let the dogs off, so it's a community location that we should have in every town. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for the motion? I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. 15.8, response to petition of Murrayville Water Tank Landscaping. Recommendation that Council 1, acknowledge the receipt of the petition, and 2, write a letter of response to the Murrayville community providing in-principle support for the project, subject to further discussions with the Grampians, Wimmera Mallee Water and the relevant landowners. Do I have a mover? Councillor Healy, a seconder. Councillor Milne. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Councillor Wood. Just briefly, I think when you have a community with a small population and you get 96 signatures, and I've looked through them all, there's no repetition, I think it's worthy of listening to, and I think there's such a proactive little community, and we must make sure that we look after our small communities, particularly out in the Mallee Track, and particularly one like Murrayville that's as far away from Mildura as we can get in our municipality. So I commend the community for putting this forward and fully support it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak for it? Yeah, Councillor Milne.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention Murrayville, it's a great little spot. It's right on the edge of our municipality, but there's a lot of people that go out there and then head into the bush from there. So there are a lot of visitors, and anything that we can do to increase the beauty of Murrayville itself, it should be a great little stopover. It's, kind of halfway between Oyen and Adelaide, and it's popular, and I think, doing something like this, it's just something else to have a look at along that Mallee Track, and we want tourists to travel from Adelaide via Oyen, then come up here, see the Oyen Lake. So, great project, and I wish the community well with it.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. 15.9, statutory planning decisions during election period. Recommendation that Council authorise the delegated officers holding, acting in or performing the duties of the officers or positions referred to in the S6 Instrument of Delegation under the Planning Environment Act 1987, S611, the powers, duties and functions set out in the instrument without the conditions and limitations specified in the instrument from the 17th of September 2024 to the 22nd of November 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Eckel, seconder. Councillor Reynolds. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Anyone like to speak for the motion? Now put the motion to vote. All in favour? The motion is carried. 15.1, Mildura East Growth Area Strategic Framework Plan.
Conflict of interest, Mr Mayor, and the reason for the conflict of interest is that I have a brother-in-law who owns land and lives in the growth area. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cole. A recommendation that Council 1 note submissions received during consultation which was provided at the Council briefing on the 13th of August 2024. 2, approves responses and recommendations changes detailed in the submissions response table. 3, adopts the Mildura East Growth Area Strategic Framework Plan which comprises Mildura East Growth Area Framework Plan July 2024, Stormwater Management Strategy February 2024, Curtin Avenue Precinct Investigation Area Report April 2024. 4, requests authorisation for the preparation of planning scheme amendment to commence implementation of the Mildura East Growth Area Framework Plan July 2024, and approves to proceed with the identified further work necessary to properly implement the project outcomes detailed within the Mildura East Growth Area Framework July 2024. Do I have a mover? Councillor Healy, a seconder. Councillor Reynolds. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? I'll hand over to you, Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Mayor Wood. I guess this is one of the reasons I really love being a councillor. I mean, of course, I love if someone calls up and there's a pothole and I can just, snap sense of it, or get through to Daryl and say, Daryl, got a problem. But what I do love is this thinking forward 50 years, thinking and planning about the future, and this sensible, considered growth planning. I think this work and us approving it tonight is reflective of a huge amount of work behind the scenes, and the planning work around infrastructure, drainage, all that behind the scenes work with multiple stakeholders across many, many agencies, and it provides clarity for landowners, for developers, speculators, but importantly for those liaison or progress groups who work alongside us to plan for the future of their communities, and in this particular situation, Irimple, Nichols Point. So I'm fully supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. Councillor Reynolds.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Wood. This particular item has been something that we as councillors have been working on with the, council staff for 18 months or 2 years, I think.
Pretty much came up when we started.
Yeah, okay, so the full 4 years. So when we first sort of heard about this, councillors, we all got on a bus. Oh, that's right, I had COVID at the time. I didn't even know, that's right. We got on a... We got on a bus, we drove around it, we had a look at it, we had the maps in front of us, council staff went over the plan with us, we went back and forward with council staff about the issues that we had, we spoke to community members who rang us with the issues that they had, and then the council plan went to Lower Murray Water. Now Lower Murray Water had some issues with it as well, which were probably the real hold-up, if I can put it that way. Not that it was a hold-up in a bad way, but it was something that really had to be considered. It was an important issue that was going to affect people in the long term. Council staff responded to that in the best possible way, so that what we have here now, as Councillor Healy said, not only is it a plan for the next 50 years, not only is it going to create certainty for the next 50 years for people who understanding what they can do with their land in this time, it's a state-of-the-art stormwater management strategy which took years and years and months of hard work. People can be confident that when they are building a property out there, the problems that they've had with flooding in some of those areas out there now are not going to happen in the future, and that's because of the effort that the council staff have gone through to make sure that that never happens again. We know that we're going to have good relationships with all of the people that are involved with this, and I look forward to seeing this strategy really work for Mildura and work for the people for Mildura for a long time to come. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mill?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I think the thing is here that I am looking forward 50 years, and that's what concerns me greatly about this plan. Council has had a plan to expand industrial land out on Benetook Avenue. In fact, if you look at the Hurley versus Mildura Rural City Council VCAT hearing, the member there says the council really should get on with Benetook Avenue and do the strategic work to make that happen. But under this plan, there's going to be more industrial land along Cower Avenue. The things that are missing in this plan is, one, a transport plan. Benetook Avenue is our transport route, our truck route. Cower Avenue is getting busier by the day. Traffic on 11th Street currently banks up to well past Cower Avenue heading out to Nichols Point of a morning. And we're going to put more industry, and Mildura people we know take a beeline, so you give them another route down Cower Avenue where there's industry, businesses, traffic will increase substantially. There's no plan for a roundabout at 11th Street. There needs to be. There'll have to be another one at 14th. It's an extremely dangerous intersection. Then 15th will need work. You'll have trucks going down there. Then they'll take the beeline out to 16th, out to 17th, around the corner, because there's no roundabout, and then straight through and out to the highway. We'll have heavy traffic going past a school. That school was built with a 50-year plan because they knew there was going to be housing across the road from it, not industry. If we look at Benetook Avenue, all the industry that's built between 14th Street and 15th Street was made to build huge walls. One business, $250,000 they spent. They had to set the building back 50 metres from that sound wall because there's going to be houses behind it. But suddenly, we've changed the rules. People have invested, it's cost them money, they haven't been able to best utilise their industrial land, their heavy industrial in Benetook, where they could have built right back if they had have known there was going to be an industrial over the fence. But our council rules stipulated that they had to have that fence at great expense. So they've spent money, huge amounts of money, and we're now changing the rules. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair. We've got a parent drop-off spot on just off 15th Street on Cower Avenue for kids at the Irimple School. We're going to send more trucks through there. We've got to think this through. Our transport plan first should be done before we approve this. I believe it should be laid on the table and wait. We've got a review of the whole planning scheme about to start for Mildura. This should be integrated into that and look if there's some better options. Now, I'm not saying that everything in the plan is bad, but I don't think enough work has been done, and I think we're going to create huge problems, particularly in 50 years. You're going to have houses on one side of the road, kids trying to cross, and yes, there's a plan to have an access road on the side, but you're still going to have heavy traffic. Not everyone's going to do that. They'll take a short cross cut between 15th and Cowra for all sorts of reasons. We're going to create some huge problems if you look 50 years down the track. Now, I think more work needs to be done. We need to listen better to the people who live out there. We need to consider more the traffic issues. We need to care about our kids a lot more and make them a lot safer. And it's just the wrong time to put this through. And I think maybe even let the future council, because I would say this will end up going to a hearing, and you'll have a council that doesn't know much about it when it comes back to them. So I can't support it unless it has a lot more work done, and that's looking 50 years down the track. So, yeah.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll actually speak for the motion. I'm extremely proud of this work. We've been along the journey the whole way for 4 years. Martin and I have been to many regional city meetings where many other regional cities don't have the capacity to do any of this. They're running out of land very quickly. This strategy also, it hasn't been done in isolation. There's the industrial land use strategy that's happening right now. There's the integrated transport strategy that's happening right now. These are all interwoven into what our future looks like. And I'm very proud, like I said, about this work. And I think many people will be proud of where they go to live as well in years to come, because there's some fantastic parcels of land that will be opened up. But this secures us as a region to say we're open and we have a projection for the next 40, 50 years. So would anyone else like to speak against the motion? Anyone else like to speak for the motion?
I'd like to speak for it as well, Mayor Wood. I'd just like to comment on a couple of the headings in that in the report, and this stretches back to the Mildura Housing and Settlement Strategy to 2013, so we haven't really just started thinking about it yesterday. And I think the consultation started in 2021, as Councillor Reynolds said, and there's a couple of key issue reports that you can read about in there as well, and there's a vision and key directions part of the document. This is really comprehensive. It's a very large document, and very much comfortable to hear Councillor Milne's overview of what he believes going on, but the same thing could be said about 15th Street. The same in the year 2000, the same thing could have been said about Benetook Avenue in 1980. We're a growing town, and we have to have these documents, because if we don't think about what an 80,000 population town looks like, then we'll be wrong-footed and we'll have to act on the run without a long, detailed plan of what's happened. Reflecting on our last meeting, like I did earlier, one of the things that has worked really well at Mildura Rural City Council is deeply strategic planning that transitions through 2 or 3 councils. That means we have a larger understanding of the issue at the time, and then we project on what the issue may look like. And then as we go through, we can adapt. As councillors, we have the power to adapt at any point in time. I'm not having a go at Councillor Milne's analysis. That's what he's here to do. But this document suggests otherwise. It's 1,000 hectares out at Mildura East. It's absolutely massive, and it needs to have a documented direction in what we do and how we do it. If we come up against a hiccup, we go and consult and we do some more work. I'm very comfortable that the people that put their hand up to be elected will be able to deal with that, because we have a great staff and we have good people that sit on this council. I support the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Monica. Steph?
Yeah, I support the proposal. I had some initial reservations because I was rather hoping that some of the land in the vicinity of the city could be utilised. But overall, that wasn't the case, and probably with good reasons. The plan is a plan, and whilst it's very specific and very well detailed, I am sure that as the city grows and we bump into problems, they can be addressed at that point, if not before. So rather than sort of putting the traditional cart in front of the horse, agitating the possibility of problems, it's better to concentrate on the possibility of solutions. And this gives the framework to think about that. In fact, there is an enormous amount of work to be done in the future, and that's the part that concerns me. We are talking about planning, and the mind goes to housing straight away. But that report also talks about parks and gardens, because we so often, in the necessity to squeeze as many houses as economically as possible into a subdivision, we don't have enough due regard for parks and for greening the city. There are all sorts of proposals in here to look at that calmly, coolly, and collectively. There's also the proposal about corridors, green corridors. And in fact, every time I travel along 11th Street, notwithstanding the amount of traffic that unfortunately has developed there, I wonder if, how you could green a place like that. So I hate to be the councillor who gets elected in that part of the world, because they will have an enormous amount of work ahead. More importantly, to finish up, Mr. Mayor, there's also the issue of what will happen to those urban vacant lots that are not designated for housing development. And that's where our collective imagination should apply, because, you can't have pony clubs everywhere. Maybe that's an opportunity to look at little solar farms to supply the city. I'm not just brainstorming, right? Um, uh, it could be one day we may have the necessity to produce our own food here, rather than going to get it from a supermarket. So there may be economic opportunity for cooperatives, for groups of people who want to produce food in these areas that are not designated for urban development. So in conclusion, the document is definitive, but it also opens up vistas that would enable us to think, and to think really seriously, and have the courage to take innovative approaches to the future of this of our wonderful city and region.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? I'll now hand back to Councillor Healy, close the debate.
Thanks, Councillor Wood, and thank you everybody for your considered responses, including Councillor Milne. Councillor Wood alluded to some of the strategies we're working with. The actual integrated transport and land use strategy, which is very much about how we travel through our city, is open for consultation right now. So if you or anybody else you know has any concerns, it closes in September, and that'll be a good place to put some of your concerns. I just agree with what Councillor Monica said too, that we can adapt as we go on. It's not locked in. So I think it's a really good plan for all the reasons we've outlined, and I fully support it.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? All against? The motion is carried. I forgot about poor old Mark.
He's eaten all the biscuits by now.
There goes your cheese budget, please. Councillor Eckel, the motion was carried.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Coffee and sandwiches are beautiful.
15.11, Mildura and District Heritage Study Part B, Stage 2. Councillor DePieri, conflict of interest?
Yes, indeed, as announced.
Yeah, thank you. Recommendation that 1, note submissions received during consultation, which was provided at the council briefing on 13th of August 2024. 2, approves responses and recommendations, changes detailed in the submissions response table. 3, adopt the Mildura and District Heritage Study Part B, Stage 2, which comprises Volume 1, Methodology Report, Volume 2, Mildura Thematic Environmental History, Volume 3, Historical Archaeological Assessment, and Volume 4, Assessed Places, Precincts and Serial Listings. 4, approves seeking interim heritage controls for the Minister for Planning under Section 20 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 when Council receives an application for demolition or a planning permit application that may significantly or negatively impact on heritage values for places identified in the Mildura and District Heritage Study. And 5, approve writing to all affected property owners and submitters to advise them of Council's decision. Do I have a mover? Councillor Eckel. Seconder, Councillor Reynolds. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Milne. I'll get you to open up. Councillor Eckel.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I don't have much to say because it's such a huge document. Where do you start? But I will say that I did make clarification to the people that are putting this together, the consultants, that I found it strange that there was a heritage listing over the railway station building, but not over the platform. And when you see the train pull up and you've only got 2 metres of a platform that the people can get out on, so you've got 5 passenger, passenger rail carriages, and they can only get out at one particular location. It's a bit, well, it's down on our district, isn't it? And I can't see how you can have heritage listing over the building and not over the platform. But let's say it's a fantastic document. There's still lots more to be done with this to bring it to its completion. And I would just like to say that I'll move that motion.
Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Anybody who's had a quick look at this will know that it's ridiculous. It's not ridiculously long. It is very, very long. Perhaps it's ridiculously long. But the reason that it's so long is because the work that's gone into this to identify the parts of Mildura that are important to us are many and varied. And we really didn't... to be able to put all that on paper and to identify to people and to councillors and to anybody who's making any decisions about what happens to our places, this is really important. You know, our history is really important to Mildurans. Like, we had people lining up and wanting to stop the demolition of an old transformer building down in the middle of Deakin Avenue. This is how important Mildura's history is to us. When we look at the things that have already gone, when we look at the Ozone Theatre, for example, at the time, nobody valued that. Nobody thought that was worth saving. And when we look back on that, we can say, how on earth did we let that go? So this document really puts on paper all the things that are valuable to us and the things that we should be looking to and protecting for the future and for our future heritage. I've got just a quick question, clarification, if that's okay as well. I was wondering if somebody could clarify for me and remind me what the interim aspect of the motion means and how that's going to affect the heritage going forward.
Through you, Mr Mayor, do you want to have a go at that General Manager Strategy and Growth?
Very kind of you, CEO, but I will let it for you to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. What the interim order does, that because we're progressing this and it's sort of clarifying what buildings are going to have an overlay on them, it's a protection for that if the owner wanted to do something in between this stage of the project and going through the next phase, which is a panel report. There's a number of other steps that have to be verified, because when you're putting an order of this type, a heritage overlay on it, it actually means stipulations, and so it has to be rigorously tested, and that's the next phase. So we go into a panel. There's the opportunity for the landowners to put in a submission to the expert panel. So what the interim order does, it puts a stay on play for nothing to happen with that building until it moves through that process. And that's actually triggered through a building permit process, that if a landowner wanted to apply for the building permit, they go to our planning department and they would note that there is an interim order on anything to happen for the time being until it gets through that final process, which is a normal process for when councils are putting heritage interim orders or heritage overlays on properties.
Mm-hmm. And just one more question and clarification, if that's okay. It's my understanding that properties that do have an interim order over them, or eventually a heritage layer over them, there's no obligation on the owners of those properties to make any changes or to do any works. There's no obligation then to change anything or to do any work to that property, is there? That's my understanding.
Only in the sense that depending on what the specifics of the facility are, normal maintenance and maintaining it, but they have to maintain the facility in the I guess the spirit of the actual original condition of the buildings. It's difficult to put a blanket statement over everything because it's specific to the nature of the building, but that's worked through. Basically what it means is if you wanted to make significant changes to the building, you'd have to apply for a permit, and then you'd work through the planning permit to work out what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why I think this is such an important document, because we do value our history and our culture here, and we want to make sure that those things are maintained into the future. So this is a great way of putting all those things that we don't even know about into our mind, so that we can enjoy them and make sure that they hang around for the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Glenn.
Just before I start, if I can ask one question. If somebody has already got a demolition order on a property listed here, will that be, or can that be revoked, or have they got permission and they can continue down that path.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd take advisement from our planning department, but I would say they would have to be referred to the planning department. If you've already got one in place, that would have to be considered. So my advice of if there is someone in that situation would be to get advice from our planning department, and we'd test that out. We'd really need to look at the specifics of what the situations are of the specific building.
Okay. Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's a difficult one for me because I do like Mildura's history, and a number of buildings have been mentioned. The Ozone Theatre, I was there when they wrecked that. I actually photographed it for Sunraysia Daily. And yeah, I found that rather distressing. I'd watched movies there and always, it was just one of the most interesting looking buildings in Mildura. And so I guess I'm not a Neanderthal or something that wants to kick every building down. But my consideration in this is, firstly, it's a 2,000-page document. I don't think anyone here in the room's had enough time really to go through it. Tell me if you have read every page, because I'm trying to work my way through it. I've got 4 big, thick piles of paper at home, and during that, there is a whole lot of information in there, and I'd like us all to think a bit more deeply about the impacts. Yes, there's an impact on our heritage, on our history, but we've got to look at value versus burden. And we've got 70-something people that own these properties. And some of them aren't really aware to the point of how this will impact them. Some properties will devalue because of that overlay. They won't be able to do...
Sorry, what's the point of order?
Point of order is there's no proof that anything's going to devalue. It's a false statement.
Yeah, I'll carry that.
There's no proof that it's not going to devalue.
Yeah, so you can't say either.
Well,
That's all right. Continue, Glenn.
I will let history see whether I was right or wrong, so I'm happy with that. I'd like to point out, some of the properties, when you look at, this is submission number 12, and they point out, the condition of their house. The response in the document is the structural condition of a building is not directly relevant to whether a recommendation can be made to include a property in a heritage overlay. It is matters of heritage significance only that are considered. Condition generally is no consideration unless there is a danger of imminent collapse or works required to return the building to an acceptable condition. And on it goes. It's not about the condition of the houses. So you've got some pretty rundown houses that are going to have this heritage overlay. Somebody has to maintain those houses. Now, we're saying we want to, make sure they don't get knocked over. So who's going to pay for it? Is council going to throw in some money to make sure we don't lose our heritage? Which houses, who lived in them? Are they really worth saving, or do we just like it? I mean, I ask myself these questions. I'd love to save my grandparents' house. I'd love to save a whole lot of other houses. But are they really worth saving? And what is the cost? What's the cost to people in the community? What's the cost to maintain them, look after them, and keep them in order? I don't think I'd like to read the other, 1,500 pages to actually get my head around this properly, because this is really important. It's going to impact people's lives, and we've got to consider our residents.
Thank you. CEO Martin Hawson.
I've just received a message from our planning department around your first question. If there is a demolition order already in place, there's nothing we can do.
Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? Councillor Modica?
Yeah, look, this is getting a bit historic tonight. You know, I got onto council because we saved the old rotunda in Nichols Point, which has a Victorian heritage listing. This is incredible. So it's got a 500 metre zone around it. And when we started that project, we wanted to save the school, but the school had no value. Red brick schools in northern Victoria are worth a dime a dozen. We didn't even look at that rotunda. It was just a rotunda that had been there since 1907. And we went to the hearing, and I've got more to say about the process you go through, because there is a criteria that you have to meet that every property has to stack up against. And if you read the documentation, I reckon I read about 350 pages this afternoon, Glenn, so I'm a bit cooked, but anyway. We went to the hearing at, I can't remember where it was now, but we were sitting there, we were all G'd up, everybody from Nichols Point going, oh yeah, we want this bloody school saved. And the woman who gave the information to us said, I'm sorry that the school has no value whatsoever to the criteria, but that rotunda is the best example of early 20th century shade protecting building that had a garden, and we just fell on our faces because we didn't understand the criteria. We didn't understand the process we had to go to, and we've inadvertently saved the school by not understanding the value of the rotunda, which really blows me away. So Heritage Study Part B, the work is again being undertaken in accordance with the Victorian Heritage Standard, and it is a two-part process. So it's not just going to pick a building and say, this is what we want, but the criteria is even more interesting. So there's criteria A through to H. So the criteria, just bear with me, because I think it's really important to understand that people haven't just thrown this document together yesterday to try and stop buildings from being knocked down, which I think Councillor Milne is leaning into, which is a good point because some people may be affected by that. But then you've got to balance the value of the building in a nominal money value or the value of the building to the community. So criteria A is importance of the course or pattern of Victorians' cultural history. What's the cultural value? Criteria B is the possession of uncommon, rare or endangered aspects of Victorians' cultural history, which is what the rotunda was, and other buildings on Deakin Avenue. Criteria C is the potential to yield information that will contribute to an understanding of Victoria's cultural history. So these are really, really important things to consider. And if you read the 2,000-page document, or the parts that I did, when you have the property, it has its address, and then it has the criteria that is stated. So they're not just thrown up there. I'll keep going just because it's fun, and it's Thursday night. Criterion D, the importance in demonstrating the principal characteristics of a class of cultural places and objects. Mildura's got a lot of modernist homes, and there's quite a few of them in the documentation, and I've mentioned it in our forum. One was ripped down on Curitin Avenue not long ago, opposite the Bowls Club, and I think a lot of people were disturbed. Now, that was a perfect example of what this document will protect. And then if the person who wants to buy it, they have an understanding of the risk they're getting involved with. Now, to support Councillor Milne to some degree, the quicker we get this in place, the quicker people have an understanding of what the risk might be in cost of doing up a building if it has a cultural overlay. Did I get to D? Yes. E is... I'm just going to go through it because it's fun, and Glenn had time, so I like doing what he does. Criterion E, importance in exhibiting a particular aesthetic or characteristic, the importance of demonstrating a high degree of creative technical achievement at a particular period. And G is the strong or special association with a particular present-day community or cultural group. And criterion H is a special association with the life or works of a person or a group of people. So we have this really good documentation. It's a scrutinised criteria, and that's what it's called, that will be put on every building that comes into our field of vision as a council, and we will apply that. To acknowledge Councillor Milne's criticisms of the document, yes, there will be a transition period where people will have to deal with not having this overlay first, so they may get into trouble. But I think it's an incredible document. I think it's really well written. It's worth a read, just on the interest of how we protect our history. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Healy?
A clarifying question.
Yeah.
Just to pick up on a point, Mr. CEO, you mentioned that there is still time and there would be some panel that people could go to and object to their property being on the listing. What does that look like?
Through you, Mr Mayor, when we do any significant strategic work, typically there'll be a request for a panel process where all the work is scrutinised by an expert planning panel that's appointed through the Department of Planning, and that is to put an extra level of rigour over the decisions that councillors make, because this then becomes part of the planning scheme, which is a document that sits under the minister and that we administer. So as part of the planning process, as part of the panel process, there would be a submission process to go through and sort out, to verify what you're agreeing to today from what the consultants have done. So it's an extra step in the process because of the significance of the decision.
But to make it very clear, if someone objects to being listed, they can present to this panel.
They can make a submission to the panel.
Councillor Eckel to close.
Okay, thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'll just reiterate what I said at the start. I don't know why we are probably debating this issue, because it's part of process. You know, it's part B of as been stated a number of times, 2,000 page document is going to be probably 4 pages at the end. But the issue is that it's just part of the process. It's like the South Mildura Sporting Complex. It's like the Powerhouse. You know, we've had 3 or 4 meetings, both those major projects and the riverfront originally, that you go through these stages. Things happen along the way, and things might happen along the way, as has been mentioned in regards to planning, because it's a statutory requirement that we do this. So, and as Councillor Monica said, and he's right, because a councillor used to sit here years ago, Councillor Thorburn used to say, you know, what is history? History can be a building that's built 10 years ago and has significance with that era, same as the building that we're sitting in tonight. People think that you know, it's a pretty ugly building, but it's got heritage over it because it has significance as far as the era is concerned. So it's all part of the process. You know, we've just got to do it. The other issue is too, 2.5 years ago, I think, no, it's more than that, 2019, September 2019, Community Reference Group was established to take us through this. And there's going to be lots of opportunity for council to give feedback into the future. I think it's about a year away before this will become a real document. It's a vital document, and voting against this tonight, stopping it, stops all the work that's been done. And we start having a look at the document in the strategic place and say now, or the strategic approach, and say now, how do we restart this? You just can't. It's process. That's all it is, and it's vital that it goes through this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Eckel. I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? All against? The motion is carried. The motion was carried, Councillor Pieri. Item 16, urgent business, and we have no items of urgent business to consider tonight.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. I would just like to state a point of order for tonight's proceedings. I thank Councillor Milne on his wonderful approach in regards to my career as a councillor, but I haven't decided whether to stand or not to stand at this particular time. So no, I do appreciate that, but I'm still under significant pressure, and I'll make my mind up when it's due. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nah, he milked it for all it's worth.
Bring him out of the darkness, don't you, Glenn?
So it continues. The relationship continues.
Who doesn't want another 4 years of that? 17, community questions. I'll now pass on to Martin, the CEO, to answer any community questions.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just we'll go to the online questions first. I'll just hand over to our General Manager, Infrastructure and Assets, Darryl, to answer this question we received online a couple of days ago.
Yeah, thank you. So through you, Mr Mayor, we did receive a question from Gerard Durakis, and the question reads, why did Council remove the battery recycling bin from the Merbeen Community Hub? Council is the responsible authority for waste collection, and Fishers in Merbeen had a collection point, but this has also been withdrawn. And now that the collection point at the library has also been withdrawn, Merbeen residents have to use or resort to putting the batteries in that general waste. So it seems to me that Council isn't serving the community effectively. The response to that is the actual battery recycling facilities, which were at either council sites or other sites, was funded by the Sustainability Victoria, so the state government. That funding has now been withdrawn, unfortunately. So we've seen a number of sites, not just council sites, where those collection agencies have been withdrawn. You can still recycle batteries, and if you get onto council's website, there's a website, I think it's bcycle.com.au, and that will actually list where there are recyclable battery locations. Most of those are within Mildura at the moment, but we are looking into whether council will pick up that service again. Obviously there's a cost to do that, but obviously we don't want the batteries to be put in the bin because they can create contamination, but also fires in our landfill. So we certainly will look at whether we can provide another service for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl. And the rest of the questions are with our General Manager, Corporate Performance, Kate Hensky.
Except for one. So the first question, so these are all questions that have been submitted tonight. The first question is from Anthony Sikowski. Apologies if I've said that wrong. It's a question in relation to rate, so we will take that one on notice and Anthony will get a written response on that one. The second question is from Kylie Elizabeth, and this question is how much are ratepayers paying to have monthly meetings filmed by a professional videographer? Is this necessary? So I don't have the actual dollars, but just for context, our existing live streaming system in the council room has had a technical difficulty and we haven't actually been able to rectify it. So the setup that we have happening at the moment with the microphones and the videographer is a temporary situation until we can actually fix the system in caretaker period. We could have not videoed the meeting and not live streamed it, but we chose to continue that service to the community rather than stopping it altogether. The next question is from Faye Groves. Faye has asked a question on the process of changing speed limits on our roads. So I will forward that one on to the Infrastructure and Assets Department and they will respond to you, Faye, on that question. The next question is from Scott Rawlinson. Scott has asked a question on the equality of oval use. And so I will forward that, take that question on notice and the General Manager of Healthy Communities will respond to that question for you, Scott. A second question from Scott is, Scott was lucky enough, and he sounds very excited about it, to have got the call for the council performance survey, and he's got a couple of questions about that. So again, I'll take that one on notice and I will respond to that one for you, Scott, in writing. I've got the two last questions that I've got tonight are from Linton Grayson, and one on 5G towers and one on flu shots, and we will respond to you, Linton, on those.
Thanks, Kate. And we've got one more question, which was a question directly towards councillors, so I'll get our Mayor to see if he can answer on behalf of councillors.
This is from Kylie Elizabeth. Are councillors happy with the way they have represented all of the rate-paying community in the last 4 years? So from my personal point of view, it's been the most rewarding thing I've done. We can't please everyone, but we try to. We do exactly that day and night, weekends. We're never not thinking about our roles as councillors. So I hope the community is, the majority is happy with us. It's probably the reason we keep going is because we do get huge support from the community. So I'm very proud to have sat here for the last 4 years, and I'm sure everyone else is at this table. So, and thanks very much for the question, Kylie.
That's it.
Thank you. Can I ask if a councillor is willing to move the procedural motion to moving into confidential business? Councillor Modica, and seconded by Councillor Eckel. I'll now put the motion to vote. All in favour? Thank you. I'd like to thank the community members who tuned in tonight and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And I would like to thank the community that comes in, week out, month in, month out, to these meetings. Much appreciated.